And today I've got a wonderful guest that I'm going to be talking to. His name is Hal Needham. He has written a book called Stuntman, My Car Crashing, Plane Jumping, Bone Breaking, Death Defying Hollywood Life. Hal Needham has worked on over 4,500 television episodes and 310 feature films. He directed 10 features, including the now classic Smokey and the Bandit, Hooper, and the Cannonball Run. His Skull Bandit race team was one of the most popular NASCAR teams ever, and he set a Guinness World Record and was the financier and owner of the Budweiser rocket car, which is now on display in the Smithsonian's National Air and Space Museum, the first land vehicle to break the sound barrier, traveling at 739,666 miles per hour. Now, he's the highest paid stuntman in the world. He's broken 56 bones, and his back twice, was the first human to test the car airbag, and he certainly has fought for stuntmen and stuntwomen for their contribution to the world of movie making, and he's won an Emmy and an Academy Award, and after all he's gone through, thank goodness he is still with us. Hal, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Man, it sounds like I've been busy.
Well, you have been busy, and I'll tell you, in reading this book, I remember some interviewing saying that it wanted to make him sit down and have a beer. Well, in the middle of this book, I said, man, I'd love to get together with these guys, have a cigarette, and drink a beer. I don't smoke, I don't drink beer, but I'd sure like to sit around with you guys and hear all of these crazy, crazy stories.
Yeah, well, let's do it. I'm ready.
Well, you've had quite a life, and I'll tell you. The first thing that I'm just wondering about is, from what I get out of the book, you were really a crazy little kid and a brave little kid anyway. Were you a daredevil at that time of your life when you first started out? You were born in Arkansas, the son of a sharecropper, and certainly. I just can't imagine that you were born this way, but were you?
Well, I don't think so. I mean, where I came from, being a sharecropper's son and everything, everybody acted that way, so it's kind of normal.
Well, is that right? That's normal, huh?
Well, yeah. I mean, you learn to ride horses and...
yeah, and you had your time with a mule-driven wagon. I remember that. But the cover of your book is an amazing cover because it features a man on fire in front of a burning car, and that man is you.
That's true.
Now, talk a little bit about that. What is that? What movie is that from? Or is that not from a movie? Or I couldn't find the information on that.
Well, I did a number of specials called Hal Needham's Wild World of Stunts. And that's one of the shows that shot from one of the shows we did in my series.
Wow. Well, this book is such fun to read, and the book starts off with an explosion and you flying 30 feet in the air, upside down and backwards. Can you elaborate a little bit on that story?
Sure. I was doing a John Wayne movie, and we needed to turn a car over, and normally you use a ramp. We didn't have a ramp because it was on the beach, so I devised the new way. I built a big cannon about 18 inches diameter, welded it in the back seat of a car with the muzzle pointed down. I put a big charge of powder up in it, a foam pole. Had some guys push me because the old car wouldn't run. It was just a junker. And when I got up about 50 miles an hour, I just threw it sideways and hit the button. And when I was upside down, backwards about 30 miles an hour, 30 feet in the air, about 60 miles an hour, 30 feet in the air, I said, this ain't going quite as planned,
Well, and you did end up with a broken back and 6 broken ribs and a punctured lung and a bunch of missing teeth.
Yeah, a couple of teeth knocked out. Yep, all in one fell swoop.
All that's for sure. So, what happened then with the rest of the movie? Obviously, you couldn't finish that, right?
No, I couldn't. But as it was, I was just one of the stuntmen. I wasn't the coordinator. I wasn't the boss stuntman.
Right, not at that time. Yeah.
And so I just sent a replacement up in my place, and they finished the movie without me, and they probably didn't even miss me.
Well, it's quite a story, and yet you kept going back to your stunt work. That's the thing, and you did go on to become the stuntman coordinator. But let's jump ahead a little bit, because certainly you're certainly very well known for the success of Burt Reynolds starring hits like Smokey and the Bandit and the Cannonball Run, and now we're hearing more of the story in the book. And you actually, at some point, you ended up living in Burt Reynolds' compound.
Yeah, well, in his guest house, yeah. Well, I doubled Burt for 18 years, and when I wrote Smokey and the Bandit, I gave it to Burt and said, I want you to read this. I said, I wrote a script. He said, he started to laugh, and he said, Hal, I didn't know you could write. And he said, for sure I didn't think you could spell. I said, can the jokes, read the script, and let me know. And next day he said, Rumi? He said, tell you what I'm going to do. He said, you find a studio, give you the money to shoot this. I'll star in it. You can direct it.
Wow.
And the rest is history.
Now, what gave you the inspiration for writing the story? Have you had similar experiences as was shown in the movie?
No, what happened was it was just I was doubling Burt down in Georgia on a movie called Gator.
Uh-huh.
The driver captain the first day on the set came over to me and he said, "Hey, Hal, I brought some Coors out from California and I put a couple cases in your room." Well, the beer kept disappearing, and I finally figured out it was the maid stealing it. So I asked her, I said, "Why are you stealing my beer?" She said, "Well," says, "you can't buy Coors beer east of the Mississippi. It's bootlegging. It's illegal. It's bootlegging." And that was a thought flashed through my little mind that might make a hell of a movie.
And it sure did.
So I went out and wrote it.
Well, and in one of the write-ups, it talks about the fact that Smokey and the Bandit cost $4.3 million to make, but to date it's grossed over $350 million. So I think you did a pretty good job. You own a piece of the profits, I guess. So that's not bad.
Oh, it is. It's kind of nice.
Yeah. Well, and then, of course, that led to other movies, and the Cannonball Run was a great movie, and it was fun to read in the story about the fact that you were actually involved in a Cannonball Run, and you had to disguise the cars and whatever you were driving so you wouldn't get stopped. And there's a funny story that you tell in the book about you had it disguised as an ambulance.
Yeah, I took a van and painted it all up like an ambulance and put red lights on it and all that kind of stuff. And when I ran the race, myself and Brock Yates were driving. I had Brock's wife was my patient in the back, and I had a doctor from UCLA just as a camouflage, so that if we got stopped, I could maybe talk my way out of it, and guess what? It happened exactly that way. We convinced those cops that we were going from the East Coast to the West Coast with a patient that had a lung disease and so on and so forth, and we walked right away from it.
And you really flabbergasted them, because they said, "Why are you going across country to go to the hospital?" And you convinced them, and you got away with it.
That's true. That's exactly what I didn't convince them. Actually, I said, "You'll have to ask the doctor." And
right.
I opened the ambulance door, and there sat a doctor in a robe and everything, and the Brock's wife is laying on a gurney with needles in her arms and all that kind of.
What fun! That's really wild. And how long after that did Cannonball Run become a film?
Well, let's see. We got back, and Brock wrote it, time I got it sold and cast and everything, I'd say probably close to a year.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, you did go on to well, you went in the service, and the thing that got me about that, it was around the time of Korea, I believe, if I'm correct about that, and you wanted to be a paratrooper, but you ended up jumping out of the plane, the darn chute didn't open, but you landed.
Well, when I joined the airborne. I was a paratrooper, and the time you're talking about was I had a little mishap in the plane. Another soldier was supposed to jump a weapon, and he was scared, so I took it, and my chute didn't open up. But really what I did in there was I also was a parachute tester. In other words, I jumped to test parachutes at that time for the military.
Well, I can't believe that you survived that. I can't believe that you survived everything in this book. But man, you've got the luck behind you and the know-how, obviously. And you keep going back for more. Now, was Hooper the story of a stuntman? Was that based on some of your experiences?
No, not really. But what it did, see, Burt played a stuntman, so that means he could work on one show, a spy thing one day, a western the next. So it gave me the opportunity as a director to put every stunt I wanted to into the movie. So I picked a lot of things that I had done in the industry, but also Burt took it a step further than I did. He had the wardrobe man, because I was living in Burt's guest house. He had the wardrobe man go out and copy a lot of my clothes, my suits and things, and Levi's and whatever. And one day we came on the set, and he and I were dressed exactly alike, so because he had my wardrobe. And he took a lot of my sayings that I use all the time, and he used a couple of those in the movie without, it kind of sprung them on me. I didn't know he was going to do it. But anyway, it wasn't a story of my life or anything. It was just a story about a stuntman that we had dreamed up.
Yeah. Well, and you had a ball with Burt Reynolds. Obviously, I think if there's any guy that a guy would love to hang out with, it would have been Burt Reynolds. And, of course, there were a bunch of women waiting in line to hang out with Burt Reynolds. That's for sure. I think every woman that ever saw him fell in love with him because not only was he a great actor, but he had a great sense of humor. You guys must have had a lot of laughs together.
We did, and I think I created something called outtakes. At the end of the movie, instead of showing the credits full screen, I'd cramp the credits over to one side, and I'd take all the funny things that happened while we were filming the movie and random call them outtakes. And I tell you, people said to me many times, the outtakes as good as the movie.
Absolutely.
We can see how much fun you had on the set.
Yeah, well, and the one that I was anxious to read was about the date that you went on with 6 flight attendants at the same time, and you took them home, never mentioning beforehand that home was Burt Reynolds, and I guess that's what sold them on it.
Yeah, well, they, on the plane, I convinced them that I'd take them to dinner and so on and so forth. And they said they had to go to the motel first. And I said, no, you can change at my house, and then we'll go to dinner, and I'll take you home.
Yeah, and there you were. What a ball that was. But there's so many good stories in here, and I haven't read it yet, but I'm anxious to read the one about your rescuing your cast and crew from a Russian invasion in Czechoslovakia. And we're going to have to read the book to find out what happens, and I encourage people to get this book. It's Hal Needham, and it's from Hatchet Book Group, and you'll have the time of your life reading this. And Hal, I got to say goodbye, but I'm going to be in touch again. I want to have you back on the show maybe next month sometime. It'll be a blast.
All you have to do is give me a call a day ahead of time, and I'll be here.
Okay, well, thanks for being here, Hal. Goodbye now.
I know, Jacqueline. Bye.
Bye. It's a Jacqueline Bachar Show. Hold on. We'll be right back with talk about the Virginia Waring Piano Competition.